you doing? You enjoying the show? Yeah? It kind of feels like we're getting the band back together right after 3 years. Kind of. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of exciting. It's really exciting that there's so many people here. Yeah, it's fun. A little closer too. Boy, I gotta kind of, I'm gonna like have a snack. Right? I'm a singer. Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. So are we ready? Is it time? Is it story time? Yeah? So I'm going to be showing a slide presentation here, and these are pictures that I have taken from all of my tours. I'm going to be talking about safety while triking, while biking, while touring. And you may be wondering why you would listen to an old woman talk about safety and touring. And I have to say, I'm so happy you asked. So my name is Sylvia, and I ride a tricycle named Myrtle the Turtle, more recently known as Moto Myrtle, because I put electric assist on it. But I have ridden this tricycle all over the world. I have ridden in 6 continents. I've been in more than 20 countries. And I don't keep track of the number of miles I have ridden, but at least 75,000. So I do have quite a bit of experience. I'm going to be talking about safety, but first, I have a very big announcement. I am going to be doing a very big tour starting next March. It's going to be the biggest tour I have ever done. I have a little competition here, don't I? Yeah. And I am going to be doing a tour around the United States with just my trike and electric assist. I'm going to be leaving from Palm Springs, and I'm going to be taking the Route 66 bike route, which goes from Chicago to Santa Monica. It actually ends on the Santa Monica Pier. I'm going to be taking it the other direction, and I'm going to be going from Palm Springs to Missouri, to Springfield. And I've already been in contact with some of the recumbent riders there. They're going to show me around. We're probably going to do some rides together. And then they're going to get me, they don't know this yet, but they're going to get me on the Katy Trail. The Katy Trail goes across Missouri to St. Louis. And then from there, I have to figure out how to get to the Gap, which is in Pennsylvania. And the Gap will take me to the C&O. See, you know all about this. Yes. Isn't that great?
That's our neighborhood.
It is. Well, we're going to have to ride together.
Yes.
Yes. And the C&O will get me into Washington, D.C. And from Washington, D.C., I'm going to get on the Trans Am bike route. There's an issue with electric assist, which you may or may not know, but you cannot get these batteries on a plane. And so it used to be that you would ride to an endpoint and then you just fly home. But I can't get these bikes, I can't get these batteries on a plane, and so I just said, I'll ride back. So I'm going to be going across the country twice. So I'm going to be taking the Trans Am, which goes from Virginia to Oregon. I think it's the oldest bike route in the United States. And it ends in Oregon on the coast, where the recumbent retreat is held every September. And next year, the recumbent retreat, it's going to be the 25th anniversary. The recumbent retreat is the oldest recumbent event in the country, probably in the world. So I have probably gone to this event for the last 16 years. I'm going to be there again in September. And then from there, there's more. I'm going to be going down the Pacific Coast to Los Angeles and making my way back to Palm Springs. So this tour is probably going to take 8 or 9 months, and it's going to be about 9,000 miles. And I am counting on all of you to help me publicize this. I have never publicized my rides. You know, I always just go. But I feel like this tour, there's a real opportunity to get people excited, to show what's possible. I'm going to be 64 years old. I'm pretty much going to be doing this on my own. I am really hoping that I can meet people along the way, that some of you will ride with me. But for the most part, I'm going to be doing this on my own. And so I'm really hoping that everybody can get the word out and be enthusiastic and follow along. I can count on you guys, right? Yeah, very good. All right, so I want to talk about safety today. And this is a topic that is kind of in 2 parts. I think when most people think about safety, the first thing that comes to mind is protecting yourself against someone else who would want to do you harm. And so a lot of people will talk about maybe bringing bear spray, maybe a knife, maybe a gun. And I'm not really going to go into that very much because I kind of feel like everybody needs to do really whatever makes them feel safe. Personally, I have never needed a weapon. I've never been in a situation where I thought a knife would help, or I've never had a situation where afterward I was like, oh my gosh, I really could have used a gun. It's just never happened. But that's me, that's my experience. And I think part of the reason why I haven't needed any of these things is because I have pretty strong ways of keeping myself safe during the day for every ride. I do have something I want to show you guys that I do carry, but a lot of people were talking about getting bit by dogs, and I didn't know quite what to do about it, and I decided to carry a whistle. And this is, I think it's a marine whistle. It's the loudest whistle in the world, and I have only needed it once. I started touring in 2007. And it was my very first tour. I went from Portland up to Canada. I was on my way down through Washington, and I had a couple of pit bulls come after me. Maybe they were friendly pit bulls. I don't know. I didn't really want to find out. And so I thought, you know what, this is great. I'm going to be able to use my whistle. I waited for the pit bulls to come like right next to me, and I blew the whistle. Do you want to hear the whistle?
Not in the mic.
Pretty effective.
Get everybody quiet.
So the dogs froze in midair. It was like a cartoon, you know, their eyes got really big and they dropped to the ground and they ran off. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good reaction. It's the only time I have needed this whistle. The only other time I have used this whistle is in, well, really to get animals out of the road, like sheep or cows or dogs, you know, because I just don't want to see them get hit. And so that is how I have used it. I have used it riding with other people, and I felt like I needed to get somebody's attention. I have used it for that. I have thought, you know, my imagination, as your imagination is inclined to do, like what if I was walking around a city and you hear about people getting mugged, and, you know, I thought this would be pretty effective because the last thing a bad guy wants is attention. So it's kind of a good thing to have as a safety device, and that is as far as I go. Yeah. You know, I got this at REI. Whistles for Life LLC.com, and I've had it for a super long time. So, but I think they're pretty normal to find. Yeah. And so that's the only safety device that I carry with me. In fact, you know what? I started that tour with bear spray, and I went into Canada, and they took it from me at the border, and I said I had to surrender it to the Crown. And that was the last bear spray I ever bought. Right?
Yeah.
And you know, when there's a lot of Facebook pages, and I'm on a lot of them. In fact, I think I'm even a moderator on a lot of them. And over the last year or so, I've been seeing people are kind of chomping at the bit to start touring. And there's been a lot of discussion about people are saying, oh, I'm going to be doing this bike tour across the United States, coast to coast, and I will be on a bike path the whole way. I want to tell you there is no such thing. There is absolutely no such thing. And so if you really want to be doing bike touring, the first thing is you have to be comfortable riding on the road. You have to feel safe being in traffic. And for a lot of people, that is a showstopper. The last couple of years, I bought a truck and a trailer, and I've kept my trike in the back of the truck, and I've been driving around, riding on bike paths. And so that is another option. There is a lot of bike paths, lovely bike trails. They do not connect, but you know, driving from one to another to do these trails may be another option. Some safety items. We all have flags, we have lights. I have 2 flags. I always have 2 flags. And I have discovered that car drivers love to see the flags. If you've seen any of my videos, you probably know that I fly drones. One thing I have noticed from flying my drones, if I'm showing a shot from behind, you can't see these flags. What you can see are these tassels, but you cannot see the flags. And so for my next tour, I'm going to be switching out this flag. This is not a good safety flag. It just doesn't flap enough. You just can't see it. And I fully think that if you are touring in the United States, the best flag you can fly is the American flag. Yes. And there's a bunch of reasons for this. First of all, it's really visible. People recognize it immediately. It brings out an emotional response. It has a lot of flapping to it. It doesn't have any of the reflective stuff, but it's something that people really recognize and respect. And this may sound a little bit odd, but I think that anybody who would be upset to see a cyclist in the road, you know, the liberal commie, environmentalist, they may have some bad intentions, I don't know, but they would never hurt the American flag. And I think, you know, our culture has become so political that just seeing the American flag can make people feel like they have something more in common with you. I mean, I don't really want to get into any of that, but I will be getting a big American flag for this pole. you can't put it on this pole because then it'll hit you. Like if you have a really strong tailwind, it'll hit you in the back of the head. So you put it on this pole, and I'll probably be getting, at least 2 feet. I'll be switching that out. When I am touring, I just have one objective. And for me, this really helps make a tour less daunting, less overwhelming. My number one goal, the goal that I am reaching for every single day, is to make sure that I find a safe place to spend the night. And for everybody, that can look differently. You can stay in a hotel, you can camp, and in the United States, unlike other countries, it's really easy to find a very inexpensive hotel room anywhere in the world, even Europe. I have toured in France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, and it's really easy to find a hotel room for $25, $30 a night. That is just not possible in the United States. You have to expect to pay at least $100. And for me, and probably a lot of people, that is a budget buster. And so I have to camp as much as I can, knowing full well that the weather is, there's gonna be terrible weather, and for safety, I'm gonna have to go to a hotel. So I have to have a budget for that. There are a lot of different ways that you can camp, and I think it's really important for each person to know what your safety window is, what you're comfortable with. I need to know where I am spending the night. Like every single day, I know exactly where I am headed. I know people who tour, and they don't do this. Maybe you're familiar with a woman, Catherine Mossbrook Zimmerman. She's toured all over the world. She's quite a bit older than I am. She does not plan her day. She rides until she just doesn't feel like riding anymore, and she sets up her tent wherever she is. It can be in a city, it can be for me, I just cannot do that. And what happens for me is my imagination gets the best of me, and I just will not sleep. And of course, you need to get a good night's sleep. Wouldn't that be amazing to have that kind of freedom to say, you know what, I'm just gonna ride until I don't feel like riding anymore. And then I'll just camp wherever I am. That would be fantastic. I personally cannot do that. I need to know where I am going. For my touring in the United States, I use adventure cycling maps. So I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier. This is a company out of Missoula, Montana, and this is what they do. They make maps for bike touring. I think they've been making maps since the 70s, and maybe there's 70,000 miles of bike touring maps. So you can go pretty much anywhere in the United States on a bike route. And what makes these maps very helpful is they will list everything you need to know on your route, anything that would be, Sorry?
Who makes that map?
Adventure Cycling Association, and they have a website, and you can buy the maps. I'm actually going to show the maps tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about route planning and the resources that are available, and I have a bunch of the maps for my upcoming tour that I can show you. But they will have the campgrounds, the hotels, grocery, post office, bike shops, anything that you would need to know. And one thing that they have that is very, very helpful is the elevation profile. And it's for me, I think it's more important to know how much climbing a day's ride will offer than the number of miles. There's all kinds of journals There is not a place you can think of riding that somebody hasn't already ridden. They probably have a YouTube channel. They have a blog. You can find their route on Ride with GPS or Strava or Garmin Connect. And almost all blogs, you will see the first 2 weeks were miserable because they were really insistent that they could ride 50, 60 miles a day. And 50, 60 miles a day seems reasonable. Unless there's a lot of climbing. And you will see like people are just married to 50 miles a day, but maybe there's 5,000 feet of climbing, right? And so you think, well, my average speed is 10, 12 miles an hour. With 5,000 feet of climbing, it is not. And you may not be able to achieve your goal, and people will work really, really hard and exhaust themselves, and they'll get injuries, and they are not having a good time. And so I really recommend to anybody thinking about touring that you become very familiar with the amount of climbing that you feel comfortable doing in a day. And that's going to be different for everybody. Some people do feel comfortable, climbing 5,000 feet in a day. Personally, I am such a slow cyclist that is simply not possible. And through experience, riding many, many days and not getting where I had planned, I have learned what is comfortable for me. I can tell you I did a tour in Vietnam. I landed in Hanoi, and then I went through the north of the country, through the mountains to Sapa and into Laos. Incredibly beautiful, a great experience, and very, very mountainous. And maybe it took a week to get through this section, and every single day I thought, it's only 20, 25 miles. Of course I can do that. And it was like climbing to the moon every single day, and I did not make it. And so I would get to a place where I was just exhausted, it's getting late in the day, and I had to put my hand in the air to get a ride. I can tell you that I barely get my hand in the air and people stop and help me. And looking back on it, of course, probably what I should have done is gotten a ride to the top of the mountain. And then right? That would have been so much smarter. But these villages, there's a village in a valley, and then there's a mountain to climb, and then you go down to the next valley where the next town is. But through these experiences, I have learned that I am comfortable riding 3,500 feet in a day. And what I recommend, and this is going to sound awful, but that you take a day and you climb. You climb all day. And you can do this in a couple of ways. You can climb a hill where you know what the elevation is, and you go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It sounds really awful, but it's super, super important, because you may find that you get 3,000 feet of climbing and you're just done. You're like, I just can't do this anymore. And that is your limit. That is your limit for the day. And so you're gonna look at this adventure cycling map, and you're gonna say, okay, here's the elevation profile. How far is it climbing 3,000 feet? And then that's where you're gonna end your day. I really recommend getting off the road by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A bunch of reasons for this. I often start my rides maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. By the time 3 o'clock rolls around, you know what? I'm ready to do something else. Right? That's a long time to be pedaling. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, people are starting to get off work. They're impatient. They want to get home. People also start drinking. They're going out with colleagues. They're meeting friends for a drink. It's just a really good idea to get off the road. The other reason, much more practical, is even though you're on a cycling tour, you have a lot of things that you need to take care of every single day. And you want time to do all of these things. You don't want to feel rushed. You don't want to feel stressed. Maybe you have phone calls to make. Maybe you need to get to a bike shop. You're probably going to have to hit the grocery store to get some supplies. And you want to do all of these things before you get to, if you're going to be camping. A lot of times you'll get to a campground and there's no phone service, right? So if you need to take care of phone calls, whatever it is, internet stuff, do it when you're in town before you get to the campground. The other thing is when you get to a campground, you're going to get yourself set up, and if you leave to go back into town to go shopping, all your stuff is sitting there. So it's all really vulnerable. So it's really a great idea to get yourself settled, everything's taken care of, and then you're in for the night. I carry very few clothes with me on tour. I really carry just 2 outfits. And when you are touring, well, any kind of biking, you know this, you sweat a lot and your clothes get a lot of salt in them. And that salt can be abrasive. And so you need to rinse out your clothes. And what I do is I will take my clothes with me into the shower. I'm washing my hair and I'm using the shampoo and I'm taking the clothes that I wore for the day and I'm just kind of, getting the soap in there and then rinsing it out. And when I'm done with my shower, I take my towel, I dry off, I wring out my clothes, and then I use my towel to get the excess water. If you do this early enough in the day, your clothes will be dry the next morning, right? And I think that is very, you want to take care of all these things earlier in the day. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
We talked to you earlier about the safety on a 2-lane road. I mean, do you avoid 2-lane roads? Do you try to always find a shoulder? Or if you don't have a shoulder, do you ride on a 2-lane? 2 lanes?
Yeah, this is why I really recommend using bike route maps, because traffic is going to be used to seeing bikes, right? And a lot of times, there isn't a shoulder, even though it is a bike route. Like one route, anybody who's thinking about getting into touring, the Pacific Coast route is phenomenal. There's hardly any shoulder at all. And so you are really out in traffic, but it is a bona fide bike route. And it's like a caravan of bikers all summer long. So you're not going to be the only one out there. Yeah.
You're talking about safety with other traffic, right?
Sorry?
You're talking about safety and shoulders and traffic.
Yeah.
What about debris? Do you want to ride in the shoulder?
Yeah,
Flat tire, that's a dangerous situation.
I hardly ever get flat tires. I don't know why. I use Marathon Plus tires, and for my tours, I almost always start with a fresh tube and tire on all 3 wheels. But I hardly ever get flat tires. I know I shouldn't say that because I probably will now. But the rear flat, like every 5 years. It's very, very rare. And I also do watch the debris, but there's really not a lot you can do. Yeah. You're kind of out there in traffic. Yeah.
Well, a question related to flat tires is how often do you check your air pressure?
Yeah, I carry a pump with me. And I'm probably more likely to stop at a bike shop and use their pump because it's going to be a little easier to use than the one that I have. These tires, like if you just do a, it's not good. No, it's not good. And by the time you really feel like you need air, you needed air a lot longer, a lot earlier, my last tour, I was in Colombia, in South America, and I did get a rear flat tire. And I was coming into a town called Barranquilla, and a motorcycle policeman stopped. And he's like, so what are you doing? Where are you going? He goes, you have a flat tire. And I was like, oh, well, that's not good. And I said, well, I'm following Google Maps. I was turning 60. And I had picked out a very fancy hotel to spend my 60th birthday. And he looked at the route and he goes, oh, no, you can't go there. It's really dangerous. He said, I won't even go that route. And so he got on the radio and he called a bunch of his buddies. Next thing I knew, I had 5 motorcycle policemen helping me fix my flat tire, and then I got a toll escort. They not only escorted me, they blocked off roads so that I could get through. Like I'm coming up to a road and I'm seeing all this lights and stuff, and I'm thinking, oh, an accident up ahead, and it was like, no, it's for me, Unbelievable. Yeah, pretty incredible. So this is a device that I attach to the back of my helmet, and it connects to my Garmin cycling computer, and it will keep track of traffic in real time as you are riding. And on my little Garmin, there'll be a little dot, and it'll show every vehicle. And it's not just cars and trucks, it can be other bikes, it can be golf carts. And it will show everybody as they approach and then pass. And what's really interesting about it is it keeps track of the speed as each one of these vehicles is approaching, and it registers it. So every 10, 20 feet in the file that you'll have with all your other cycling information, there's a whole list of the speed when it first detected, whatever vehicle it is, and then as they approached, did they slow down? This isn't particularly exciting information unless something happens. So if, for instance, you had to deal with the police or maybe insurance, we all know that insurance and the police just are not going to believe the cyclist. And so you have something to back up your claim. You have something to say, hey, this person was speeding. They did not slow down as they passed me, and you will probably have a favorable outcome to whatever legal or insurance claim. So I recommend it. I'm going to be carrying 4 batteries and 2 chargers because then I can camp without worrying about needing to charge up for 3 days. So you can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. I think a lot of people here probably know my YouTube channel, and I can't tell you how wonderful it is to have such a very supportive, encouraging group. I very rarely get anything discouraging, any kind of discouraging comment on my YouTube channel, which is kind of unusual for YouTube. And so you can look for a lot of updates talking about this new tour, and I'm going to be talking about every step of the way. Like, I'm going to talk about how I eat, how do I carry my food, all the electronics. I mean, everybody knows I love my cameras, I love my drones, and then my clothes toiletries, just everything and how I'm going to be carrying it. And then tomorrow I'm going to be giving a talk on route planning and all the resources that are available. You know, it's kind of a weird loophole about getting your trike on a plane. It's kind of a you know, a gray area. The thing is, you know, I'm an older woman. I'm riding a 3-wheel bike. The assumption immediately is that I am disabled. And the thing about it is it's illegal to ask about a disability. And so what I always say is, like, you go and maybe they're like, well, what is that? And you just say it's a mobility device, right? And of course, every bike is. And anything that gets you anywhere is a mobility device, but it has a connotation and it has a legal meaning to the airlines. And so it's kind of a code word, right? And a lot of people have given me a difficult time saying, well, you're not disabled. You're taking up room on the plane for somebody's wheelchair and it's just not true. Every single person on that plane could have a wheelchair or a mobility device, and they would all get on the plane, right? So, you know, it is a gray area and it's kind of a funny thing. But I'm telling you, how many people do you think are getting their trikes on a plane, right? How many people ride trikes? Very, very few. I mean, there's a few other people that have YouTube channels, but I'm really kind of the only person doing what I do. So there's that too. All right, you guys, thank you. I really appreciate you guys coming out and hanging out with me. Yeah, thank you.